What's going on, yo? This Pito back with another book review. Today we doing Demi Moore's book, Inside Out. This book was wildly entertaining. I don't know if anybody have read it, but if you have read it, let me know what you think in the comment section. This Pito with another book review, Demi Moore, Inside Out. Let's get it. So one of the things that she talked about in her book, Demi Moore, Inside Out, she talked about as a kid, one day she came home and she was asleep and she heard like a tussle going on in the other room, and she realized that her mom and dad was fighting. So she went in the room trying to figure out what was going on, and she saw her dad on top of her mom, like kind of pumping her chest, trying to make her throw up a little bit to get the pills that she just swallowed, trying to check herself up out of here. So Demi had to go in there to her mom's room and literally stick her fingers down her throat to get her mom to, throw up, and so she could recover from everything that she had just took. And I thought that was a wild way to kind of begin the book, talking about how she basically had to rescue her mom. And as a child, it kind of like ruined her. It's something that she never really got over. It's something that she consistently thought about. And that was like one of the crazy parts about this book, which it was plenty crazy parts, but that was just one of them. You know what I mean? So another crazy part about this book was like when she was assaulted, and her childhood was so crazy, she kind of developed an idea of how relationships supposed to be, which was false. And reading this book, you kind of get a windmill cycle of how karma comes back around and goes around, and it just continuously keep going. Because in this book, she did a lot of messed up things when she was younger because she didn't know any better as far as relationships, cheating on her boyfriends and leaving guys for other guys that was married, and like she cheated at her bachelorette party. And there's a lot of little stuff that she did, but then later on, when you get further into the book, you start realizing like everything that she did when she was younger eventually came back to her at a later date. And it just was wild, man, just to see the windfall and everything that she went through, all the ups and downs, and how much a lot of things that she put out there end up coming back to her at a later date. That was another wild part of this book. So we got to be careful about the things that we are putting out at a younger age, because karma is real and things come back in ways that we don't expect or times that we expect. You with me? Another thing in Demi Moore's book, Inside Out, she talked about how she used to choose cocaine over alcohol because it helped her stay more alert, and she was able to do her job better when she was on cocaine, and because the alcohol would make her so drowsy, so sleepy, and act out of character. So one thing about it was cocaine, it kept her sharper, and she was able to perform and do things right on her sets and the movies and stuff like that, because she had an incident where she got drunk and ended up getting into it real bad. One of her co-stars, I forgot the guy's name, and he ended up cursing her out, kicking her out the trailer. So that's when she started really leaning into cocaine to get to a different place, to stay sharp on her jobs, which is wild to me. And it's like, y'all be hearing people that be on coke and how it be giving them such a high, such a rush, and they help them maintain in spaces where it's like high volume or a high stress situation. But it's just still wild to me. Like, you still choosing the evil over a different evil. But I'm not judging. It's just crazy to hear. Like, that's one of the things she was doing at the time when she was actually at the top of her game. Another thing in Demi Moore's book, Inside Out, she talked about how she was about to do a movie. I forgot what movie it was. I believe it was A Few Good Men, but I could be wrong. But they were trying to put her in rehab. And she was like, look, I can't do rehab right now. And she was like, how long is the rehab? The rehab was for 30 days. And she was like, look, I can't do it. I'm supposed to shoot a movie in 16 days. And they was like, look, you can't leave. And she was saying how they had it set up so where you come in, they have everything ready for you, so there's no reason for you to leave. Like, oh, I can start tomorrow because of this, because of that. She was like, no, you need to start right now. And she was like begging with her, like, look, I have to shoot a movie in 16 days. This is not going to work. So she was like, well, let me at least go to the bathroom. She said she went to the bathroom to snort some coke because that she felt like that was the last time she was going to be able to do it in a while. So she went to the bathroom, did that, and she came out. And the girl was like, well, I made a phone call and I have some people coming. So the producers of the movie came and told her, like, look, you have this X amount of time to get yourself in shape for this movie. But the whole time, the producers was the ones that called her to get her put in rehab, which I thought was wild. Like, that's how you know some people got your back and supporting you and want you to do better. Because even in these opportunities, they still trying to put you in a position where you could do better, even with the opportunities they give you. So I just thought that was another wild part of the story. Like, she was still getting blessed with these opportunities, even though they knew she had a dangerous habit at that time. You know what I mean? And I don't know how many other people will be awarded that same, like, privilege or that same, like, outreach or that same opportunity, even though they know you're messing up. Which I'm pretty sure there's plenty of, like, people on drugs in Hollywood that's still acting and people know it. But just hearing it just still is like a difference than knowing it versus hearing it. Like, you know what I mean? Another thing about Demi Moore book that I thought was crazy was how she met Bruce Willis. She was with Emilio Esteban, I believe who it was, and they like had a falling out or something like that. So they realized their situation wasn't gonna work. So she went and she kind of separated from him. And then they went to a party together. And at the party, Bruce Willis was there. Bruce Willis was all over her. He was trying to holler at her, trying to talk to her, like, give me your number, let's hang out, let's do this, let's do that. And she ended up like giving him a number, and they ended up hanging out. And she was just saying how nervous Bruce Willis was when they first met. Like, Bruce Willis didn't have a pen to write her number down, so he wrote it in her arm. But she realized when he was writing her number down that his hands were shaking, like he was so nervous talking to her. And that was something that she really enjoyed and really liked, because it was something so different than what she was used to, because everybody else was just making her a sex object. But Bruce really cared, really liked her. He was taking her on private jets, trips everywhere, opened the door, being a real gentleman, and really cared about her. And it really turned into a beautiful thing, though, because they ended up having a good marriage, even though it didn't work. But they had a long time they was together. They had some beautiful kids, and they had a compound. And she even talked about when they split, when they broke up. But we'll get to that later in the book, how things were still kind of cordial throughout the breakup. Even when she got with Ashton Kutcher, it still was like somewhat of a cool situation. So yeah, that was another dope part of this book, talking about how her and Bruce Willis ended up getting married and how they met. Okay, another thing that Demi Moore talked about in her book, Inside Out, she talked about how she did not have to audition for Ghost. And the book was good. I mean, the movie was good because it was like good chemistry with her and Patrick Swayze, and how they really got along on set, and everything was good. And she also talked about the haircut. Like, the script was written for somebody with long, beautiful black hair, but she had got her hair cut in Paris, and they had messed it up. So she saw like a famous haircut inside of a magazine. So she went to a barber to get the haircut, and the guy that ended up cutting the hair was actually the guy that created the hairstyle. And that's where the look came from Ghost. But that movie ended up turning into be like one of the best type movies that came out at the time, one of the top selling, and they kind of still stand up to this day. If you ever watch it, it's definitely a good movie. To this day, it's good. You know what I mean? Another crazy thing about Demi Moore book, Inside Out, she talked about how on the set of A Few Good Men, she was working out so hard and so much because she had a baby with Bruce, that whenever she was breastfeeding, the baby was becoming malnourished because her breastfeeding wasn't creating enough nutrients for the baby. So the baby kept losing weight, and they didn't understand why. But later on, they found out that she was working out so much, so she ended up having to put her baby on formula. And I know a lot of moms that have breastfed and been through that situation where the last thing they want is to put their child on formula. They feel like it's a lot more healthier, a lot more natural. So that was one of the things that was devastating to her about being on the set of A Few Good Men and her baby not gaining no weight. And then she watching the doctor literally put the baby on formula. But the baby turned out fine and everything like that. But it just was wild to me that that's something that she had to experience. Another thing, they said that the producers was upset on that movie scene because she didn't have a sex scene with Tom Cruise. And one of the higher ups of the movie studio was like, well, if she don't have a sex scene in this movie, why is this character even a woman? And she was like salty about that too. Like, why would they even say something crazy to me like that? So that's another crazy part about this book that she talked about on the set of Few Good Men, that they was mad that she didn't have a sex scene with Tom Cruise. Another thing that Demi Moore talked about in her book, Inside Out, she talked about Striptease, how she ended up getting $12 million for that movie. And at the time, she was the highest paid actress in Hollywood. And the reason why they paid her so much because there was in a bidding war between Striptease and G.I. Jane. So she ended up they had to pay her like a crazy amount just so they could shoot that movie before they shot G.I. Jane. And one other thing that she talked about in this book that surprised me was how intense and how hard she was working out, and how much she was just so addicted to the workouts. And it just caught me off guard. Like, the movie is called G.I. Jane and stuff like that, but you still don't think that she's actually putting in the work like that. But according to this book, according to her, she was putting in that work. And I always admire and I always give big ups to people that be putting that work, especially in the gym physically. Like, that's a whole other thing. So big up to Demi Moore. Good job, girl. Another thing that Demi Moore talked about in her book Inside Out was the divorce with her and Bruce Willis, and how it was, it was hurtful, it was sad, it was a tough time. But mainly what stuck out to me the most was how they kind of stuck together and made like a family thing and had a compound for the family, and how he bought the house down the street. And I know a lot of people don't have luxuries like this, but I don't think a lot of us would, even if we did. But the fact that they kind of stuck together and they kind of built a compound for the family, for all the kids to be raised in the house, right? And the best way they could anyway, which I thought was dope, because I'm going through a breakup right now. But me and my ex still get along, and this is probably the most peaceful breakup I've ever been a part of. And we actually still get along. We still talk all the time, and everything is cool right now. And I'm not saying it ain't tough, and I'm not saying it ain't hard, and I'm not saying things will or won't change. You don't know what the future holds, but you can appreciate a soft landing spot when y'all both deciding to part ways and stuff like that. So that was something that I admired in this book, and I thought was dope. And I appreciate my ex for making this situation as easy as she possibly can, and I'm trying to do the same. We both being supportive of each other and try to move in the maturest way possible to navigate these tough times. You feel me? So another thing in Demi Moore's book Inside Out, she talked about how she did not want to be the villain in Charlie's Angels. She didn't want to do it. She thought it was a bad look. She wasn't with it. But her daughters was like, look, it's a dope. It should be fun. You should do it. It's going to be a good time. So that's why she decided to accept the role as a villain in Charlie's Angels, because she did not want to do it. She did not want to be a villain. But based off of because her daughters was pushing it, they thought it would be cool, and they were so excited about it is the reason why she did the Charlie's Angels role, which I thought was a good movie. I thought she looked good in that movie too. And I'd be forgetting how many hits Demi Moore was in. She got so many movies that was good. And like, Demi Moore was doing her thing. You kind of forget that as time passed on, but this was a good reminder how much work she was putting in. So one of the things that Demi Moore talked about in Inside Out was how she met Ashton Kutcher, and how it was such a romantic and intimate space, and how they talked all the time, and she really felt like that was her soulmate, and it was so vulnerable and so nice and so loving, and how being there with him really helped her see a lot of things that she'd been through was messed up and wrong, and he really helped heal so much of her. And you could tell she was madly in love with Ashton Kutcher, and she just talked about how much she really cared and loved for that man. And as you know, like, he ended up cheating on her and leaving the marriage, and it was like really a messed up space. But before I get to that point, she was saying that Ashton Kutcher didn't realize how much of a media frenzy it was going to be once they announced their relationship, because she kind of wanted to keep it out of the spotlight. She also said how much of a good stepdad Ashton Kutcher was, because he had a good stepdad. So he made a point to be there for the kids and be as thorough and good as he possibly could. That was another amazing part. And she was saying how, back to him cheating, and how devastated and how hurt she was and how embarrassed she was. And she had lived her whole life to get to a point where she was stable, she was happy, she was situated. But she didn't realize how much faith she was putting in a young man that really didn't know and really haven't fulfilled and lived out his life to the point that he needed to be on the level that she was, emotionally mature and stuff like that. And it just made me think about a lot of these younger relationships, these guys that begin with these younger women in these relationships, and be trying to be fully committed and stuff like that. Like, what is the correct age to be in a happy, committed relationship with somebody younger than you? Like, that's just another wild scenario that I thought was crazy. But that was something that was like really wild and really made me think about, like, sometimes getting in these really deeply loving and committed and heartfelt spaces sometimes can be the hardest things to come about, and they hurt the most, especially when you really believe in that individual. So that was just like wild to me. So this is the last thing I'm going to talk about in Demi Moore's book, Inside Out. she ended this book off with some heat, like with some bars. And y'all know me, when I read these books, I love when people drop bars. She said the only way out is in. And basically she talked about how when she got divorced from Master Kutcher, she kind of fell back into addiction. She had a hard time getting back on track. Everything went left for her. Like her kids stopped talking to her. And she had to learn how to be her in her space. Not be a mother, not to be a friend, not to be a wife, not to be anything but her. To be who she was. And that was so wild to me, like just figuring out who you are in that space without no sort of attachments, just being you, being in that space where you fully understand who you are, getting to know you, getting to learn yourself. And I'm kind of in that space, like I'm still a father, I'm still a brother, I'm still so many different things, but just getting to a space where you just figuring out how life is supposed to be with just yourself can be strong sometimes. And I know a couple other people going through a similar thing, but I just think it's funny, man, when she said that, it was like right on time for something that I need to hear. And I wish so many other people could hear or feel what I felt when she made that statement of just figuring out how life is supposed to be with just you. So once other things come into your life, you won't lose yourself, or you won't fall into other people, other situations, or your career too much to where if it do go, you feel lost without. So I thought that was another amazing part about this book. This is Pito with another book review. If you have read this book, let me know what y'all think. This was a dope book. I really was entertained by this book. I really was. But if you have read it, let me know what you thought in the comment section. It's Pito with another book review. I'm out.